Going to be here, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, so welcome everyone to our cold January meeting, the first meeting of 2024. We've had Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please.
Thering,
Here.
Buckley,
Here.
Albrecht,
Here.
Shingles,
Here.
Squadrito,
Here.
Lapp,
Here.
LaBelle,
Here.
Gross,
Here.
and McDonald's is excused.
Okay, thank you. Next item is approval of the agenda. So you have the agenda for tonight in front of you. There are two new business items and one other business item, along with the usual reports. Are there any other items that anyone's aware of that needs to be on tonight's agenda? If not, we can have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Support.
So motion by LaBelle, second by Gross to approve the agenda as prepared. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so our agenda is approved. Next item is approval of the minutes. We last met December 19th, 2023. And those minutes are in your packet. Are there any corrections to the December 19th minutes?
The chair, Squadrito's name is spelled incorrectly in the final board comment.
Fix that.
Anything else?
Motion to approve the minutes as amended. Second.
Okay, so motion by LaBelle, second by Shingles to approve the minutes as with the minor editorial correction. Any further discussion on that? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so our minutes are approved from December 19th. Next item is correspondence, board reports, and presentations. First item is Commissioner Thering, updates from Board of Trustees.
The only thing I have this evening is that the Board of Trustees accepted the 2023 Planning Commission Annual Report. That's what I have.
Was it a reluctant acceptance? Were they wowed by it?
No,
Were they
I mean, it was
neutral?
a standing ovation. It probably lasted 5 minutes, and it was huge.
That's what I like to hear. All right.
It was good.
Any questions for Commissioner Thering on board-related matters? Okay, if not, we'll move on. Thank you. Next item is Commissioner Buckley, updates from ZBA.
ZBA hasn't had, well, I take that back. I'm going to apologize. I've been out of pocket for a few meetings. Just life came up long enough to grow my hair out instead of a shaved head. So, but I think our last ZBA got canceled. I believe.
Right.
There's there's been no new activity with the ZBA.
Okay. You answered my other question, which was, what was different about Raleigh? Any questions for Commissioner Buckley on ZBA-related matters? When's the next scheduled meeting? I know you only meet when it's necessary, but...
The next scheduled meeting is February. At this point, we have no applications for it.
Okay. All right, thank you. You have in your packet the Community and Economic Development Monthly Report. Continues to be very thorough, kind of log of I don't know, almost all township activity, certainly planning commission, Board of Trustees, CBA, et cetera, economic development councils and so on. Are there any questions from commissioners about anything in the monthly report?
Chair,
Yes.
I just want to let you know that my term expires in February, so I am not going to re-up this time due to other conflicts. So that will be a position that will need to be filled.
Okay, well,
But I'm willing to come back later. Just have too many conflicts right now. But
all right, well, sorry to hear that, but thanks in advance, because commissioners can remain on the commission until their position is filled.
correct, and
So
I will
it's
do that.
Possible we might see you again in February.
That is true.
So I guess I'll save my lavish going away verbiage
Please,
until
I didn't
then,
bring my
but-
tissues tonight.
But just in case anything were to transpire and you weren't at that meeting or whatever, we certainly appreciate your service and we'll miss you and all that good stuff.
Thank you.
Okay, so because there's an impending vacancy, I guess I could put this elsewhere, but since it came up, since there's an impending vacancy on the Planning Commission, if any of you know individuals that you think would be a good fit or might be interested or whatever, I would encourage you to encourage them to submit an application. And they can get the application on the township's website, correct?
That's great.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on the Community and Economic Development Monthly Report? Any other reports that anyone is aware of? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. So at this point, we have 2 public comments during our meetings. The first one is now, and it is restricted to items that are not on tonight's agenda. So we have a more extended public comment later, but if anyone wants to address the Planning Commission on an item that's not on tonight's agenda, they're welcome to do so at this time. We ask you to come to the podium, speak into the microphone and give us your name and address for the minutes, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. So this first public comment is open at 7:07.
I don't have anyone on the Zoom.
Okay, so there's no one online, which is an option nowadays. And we do have audience members tonight, but we'll assume they're here for other purposes. And so seeing no one approaching the microphone, we'll go ahead and close the public comment at 7:08 with no comments. So we're ready to move on to new business. As I mentioned, we have 2 new business items tonight. The first one is PRESPR 23-03, which is a preliminary site plan application for the Valvoline Instant Oil Change Shop to be located on East Bluegrass on the south side, just west of Encore Boulevard. So I'll turn it over to Rodney for an introduction, and then we'll move through it.
Thank you. You should have a copy of our report dated the 8th of January. This, as you note, this is for a new facility that will be going essentially next door to the Members First Credit Union, basically on the Bluegrass frontage in front of Walmart. This is a preliminary site plan, so you don't see all the details there, but this was a very thorough plan that was presented. In our report, you'll see a number of comments. In some cases, there's quite a number of details like the parking, but these are all details for the most part. These are all sort of housekeeping items where they're identified here that fix it on the final site plan. A couple of big items. One is on page 2 of our required page 49 of your packet, talking about the development parcel. This vacant land that fronts on Bluegrass was planned to be divided up in 4 lots. For a long time, only the Members First Credit Union lot was divided off. This past year, they divided the remaining land into 3 parcels, and you're looking at one of those 3 for this development project. But the Valvoline facility is only occupying part of it. As you can see on the plan, they're essentially proposing to leave part of it vacant for future development, providing an access for that. We've noted in our discussions with the applicant that the amount of land left over is fairly limited. I suppose another oil change facility could go there, but there's not a lot of room on that site for other types of commercial development potential without the need of variances. And so in our discussions with the applicant, we suggested that they look at, and we note in our report, that they look at working with the developer, the owner of the property, Mount Pleasant Holdings, to do a boundary adjustment, so that they simply adjust the boundary between the two parcels, so that the one that they would be buying or purchasing for the Valvoline site would be reduced to the amount needed for the Valvoline site, maximizing the future development potential of the remaining land. So that's our recommendation. I understand the applicant has some thoughts on that, and there are alternatives. Certainly, the Valvoline project could be adjusted in its design to maximize the vacant land available for another project on that same lot. So that's where we looked at it, was simply the boundary adjustment seemed to be the easiest solution. The other part of that, and really one of the elements of making more efficient use of the site, was we recommended that the building be moved forward on the lot to the private front setback line. As you'll note on the plans in our report, we noted that there's a kind of an angled setback line that cuts across the front of this property that's quite deep. It's about 50 feet deep from the right-of-way on this parcel, more or less. It appears to be mainly there to make sure that folks driving east on Bluegrass Road can see the Union Commons sign without any impediment of a building in between, because it pretty much lines up with that sign. It is a private easement. It's nothing to do with our ordinance, but it's noted on the plans as a building setback. That creates a circumstance where any building on this lot has to be pushed back well back from the right-of-way, much further than our ordinance requires. And so we simply suggested that to make better use of the lot, that they slide that building forward so that the building is at least more visible from Bluegrass and has better frontage, visibility there, but also, again, can make better use of the remaining land that would be left over for a future project. We also said, just on the top of page 3 of our report, and this was, as noted, a suggestion, that they consider doing something with that unusable land out in that private building setback, perhaps putting some kind of amenities out there. There is a requirement for bicycle parking. They could put some kind of bicycle parking facility out there that could be an amenity. There's other amenities, pedestrian amenities, there are various things they could do in that space. And we recommend it simply, again, to have something out there, some visual interest. It also could be something where, for example, and I don't think we noted this in the report, but they could put some pedestrian amenities out there that are painted in Valvoline colors, for example. So it's not signage, but it would attract your attention, but also be an amenity on the site. That is a suggestion. It's nothing required, and we just simply ask them to consider it. So I think they'll probably talk about that as well in their comments. But it seemed to be, if anything, that would make good use of the land, more efficient use of the land would be helpful. The remaining items are, as I said, are essentially housekeeping items. I think the only other significant one is under landscaping, page 4 of our report. And that is simply that if they choose not to do a boundary adjustment, that they are going to have to provide the landscaping along the road frontage, across the whole frontage of the lot. This is something similar to what was required at the Prestige Center assisted living facility on Broadway when they came in. And that's a change we're aware of. But overall, we found the project to be sufficiently complete for your review and for the action on the preliminary site plan. We did include in the set of potential draft motions, under the motion to approve the conditions, we included the condition about moving the building forward on the lot. I'm only mentioning it if that's something you feel very strongly about, that you want to see that happen. Then that could be a condition. It is not necessary. This really is something that they can choose. They can leave it where it is. They can move it forward. But as I said, you can, if you choose, make it a condition so that you will see it up to that private setback line on the final site plan. So that again, it's up to you as whether you feel strongly enough about it to actually make it a condition of approval, or let them make their choice on that. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions as we go along.
Before you step down, I understand the east-west issue. And with respect to the, I guess it's north-south issue in terms of how close is the building to bluegrass, I understand the argument about visibility of the building from bluegrass, but you used the word efficiency, I believe, and I guess I'm not wrapping my head around what would be more efficient use of the lot to move the building further north to the closer to bluegrass.
Well, one of the elements is for the building to become part of the signage. That's our goal in terms of commercial districts, and that's why we reduced the setback requirements significantly in the B5 district, was so that these buildings would be closer to the front of the lot, and it reduces the need for large signage to support that business. If the business itself is there and the building signage is there, that's really for the same reason I suggested the idea of some amenities out front that could even potentially be in their Valley's colors if they chose to give some attention to the site. In terms of efficiency, there is a very large setback at the rear of the lot for stormwater management. It's another private easement, but it's has a significant depth at the south side of the lot that minimizes the ability to use that part of the lot for any future expansion or other projects. So the more you slide the building forward, the more available land there is to do something else with it in the future, whether it's expanding this facility or some future project. That's the main benefits from making the change.
Okay.
When you say future project, I'm sorry, were you done, Phil?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank
When
you.
you say future project, do you mean something like they could split it off and sell it and another business could go there? Or do you mean, or you just mean specifically for that business?
Well, I mean, on a commercial lot, you can have more than one principal building. They could not split the parcel. There are no more land divisions there.
Okay.
Unless they put together a subdivision plat or a condominium type situation. Those are ways they can buy it. But there could be another building built on that back portion. As I said, you can have more than one building, or you can expand that building. It simply would create more options.
For them only?
Well, for any development on that lot, whether it's for them or for any future user. As I said, there's also the efficiency element of benefiting the township of that building being more prominent on the Bluegrass River frontage.
I just had a quick question. The current land, you said it's been split into 3 parcels. It goes from Bluegrass all the way back to the Walmart parking lot.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
They all, the south property lines, all that land lines up with the edge of that Walmart access drive.
Yeah.
And all these properties have access to that drive. And in fact, are required to use it. There's one, on all that vacant land, there's one access point planned on Bluegrass Road. You could, if you drive by, you can see the curb cut for it. It's not part of this parcel. So all access for this parcel will be off that Walmart shared driveway.
So would there be enough land, even if you moved it forward, if you put another business behind it, to be able to access this project? I assume there will be a road coming off of the Walmart access road that would bring you into is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Other questions for Rodney before he steps down?
So the west boundary is what you're suggesting, help me understand the west boundary, what you're asking. You're suggesting that, I know that there's limited space left for an additional business there, and what are we accomplishing by moving the boundary?
So as you look at the plan, you'll see that their building is on the east half of the lot. And they have essentially a driveway coming in from the Walmart shared drive, basically up the middle of the lot, that you turn right to go into the oil change site. And at the point where you turn right to go to the oil change site, there's a little curb cut proposed going to the left. And you see the vacant land on the west side.
Right.
Essentially what we were suggesting was, rather than have that vacant land, which they have no plans to develop right now, and at least as designed in the preliminary site plan, is fairly narrow to be able to do something of significance with it. We suggested the idea of simply doing a boundary adjustment, move that line actually probably to the center of that shared drive, that little driveway. We'll call that then a shared driveway between the two lots, so that basically the Valvoline parcel is only is reduced to the size they need for the Valvoline development, and the remaining land is available for any future development.
So does Valvoline currently own both parcels?
Mount Pleasant Holdings, which is the
Mount
original
Pleasant.
developer of Union Commons, is the seller of the land. As noted in the report, the property is going to be purchased by a company and then leased to Valvoline for this development.
Okay, so we're just basically saying, I mean, that is effectively just saying, hey, Valvoline isn't, because of the nature of their business and the layout of the facility, that they don't need as much land as maybe another applicant, so we're suggesting we move the boundary in, so that way it would create more space for another business to potentially locate there in the future. How does that affect the applicant in terms of, I mean, it's a purchase of the parcel though, right? It's not like a long-term lease or anything like that
No,
for
it's a
Mount
purchase.
Pleasant?
Basically, the buyer and the seller would have to agree on what's going to happen.
Kind of negotiate or renegotiate the price of that adjusted smaller parcel.
However that is, there
Yeah.
would have to be agreement on what would happen.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And if I may, just before, as noted in the report, you see it here, we're recommending it, it's not a requirement.
No, I understand,
I
yeah.
mean, the land can be left vacant, they're just gonna have a whole bunch of land they need to mow. It's the same
Right.
problem with that private building setback up front, it just means more land they have to mow.
Yeah.
That has no value to everybody.
That was exactly my question. I was gonna ask, they still have to maintain the property though, so in some ways you'd think it would be a benefit to them to want to not have to maintain as much of the property, but
Yeah.
ultimately it's their
And
decision.
we will require that the whole lot be mowed. The vacant land, there's sort of two standards here. The vacant land, under our noxious weeds ordinance, we require a certain depth from the road to be mowed. Once this land is developed, the whole lot will need to be kept and kept with appropriate ground cover. So yes, it would have all that mowed.
I have maybe a comment. Is it our place to suggest that? I mean, I think as long as they meet the front and back and side lot setbacks, is it our place to say, well, we think we should move the building this way or that way?
Well, this is your ordinance, this is your master plan that this project is coming in under. The Bluegrass Center area master plan has some very specific direction that for this area. This project doesn't really fit with it. The Bluegrass Center plan is for more pedestrian-oriented things. But right now, this project absolutely meets our zoning requirements and apply in terms of land use. So it's certainly not going to say go away, and it's a good project, and it's absolutely a needed service. But nonetheless, the idea of the Bluegrass Center plan is that this is an area that is more pedestrian-oriented, and that buildings are prominent on the sites. When you have a building slid back from the road, it gets lost. And typically that means you need larger signage to try to tell people, hey, you gotta come this way. It actually is even more of an issue here because the access to the site is around the back. So in order to get there, people have to know they go to the light, turn right, turn right, turn right to get in there. So if you put the building closer to the road, at least it draws attention to it better. It is, as best we can in terms of this kind of land use, more in keeping with the character of the master plan. But as noted in the report, it's a recommendation. We can't, we're not saying it can be required, and we don't recommend it be included even as a condition. Oh, I'm sorry, well, I'm sorry, I was thinking of the boundary adjustment. We're recommending it. You can require it as a condition if you choose to, based on the Bluegrass Center plan, and the character of the area as you have defined it in the adopted master plan. You also can simply let them make their choice. We have no objection if you chose to. We recommend the plan for approval. I don't know that I actually said that. The plan, as I said, is certainly sufficient for approval as a preliminary site plan. All the items in our report they can address in the final. But if you feel strongly about having to bring that building forward on the lot, then you could make it a condition so that you will definitely see it on that final. And that's really similar to the road commission or another agency that has a preference for where a driveway access might be. You know, they may have their access here. If there was one off Bluegrass and the road commission says, no, we need it 100 feet over, either site may meet their standards, but this is the preference. And so they will say, this is where we want you to put it, and it's going to end up there. So it's really up to you as to how strongly you feel about moving it forward. But do keep in mind that each of these site plans that come before you is a step in implementing the master plan that you have established for the area. And that master plan talks about more prominent placement, talks about more pedestrian orientation, which is also bringing buildings closer to the road, so that you have more of a feel of it's a suburban place, or not an urban place. So that's the same reason that the amenities out front were suggested, simply because it does provide some potential for the pedestrian activity that goes through there. There's a lot of folks who walk through there. Frankly, there's no sidewalks out front yet on this vacant land, but quite a few people walk across that stretch, and it certainly is a high priority to get done in terms of sidewalks. So it is an area where there are lots of pedestrians. But those are all things that you can, basically, if you feel important, you could include those conditions to see on the final, or you could let them make their choice.
Okay, any other questions for Rodney before we hear from the applicant? Okay, thank you. So at this stage, we normally give the applicant the floor to let them introduce their project, tell us whatever they'd like to tell us, and presumably probably respond to some of the discussion that we've just had. So.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. My name is Robin Peck. I'm with Valvoline, a pre-construction project manager out of Lexington, Kentucky. But I would like to jump into piggyback what Roger was, or I'm sorry, Rodney was just speaking about with some of the concerns. We were speaking with him and Peter over the past few weeks about these, and we've come up with some solutions, some suggestions based on our discussions with him. So if I could, I'll go ahead with that. As far as the boundary adjustment, I have Andrew Bell here with me from Lomax Stern, and his company is the purchaser of this property. And they already have a purchase agreement in place as far as the boundaries. What we would like to do is we have the ability to move our, let's call it the Valvoline development, plan left to the east. And I've got a plan here in front of me. We've been playing around with it. We can provide at least 20 more feet for 102 wide width of that parcel that's at the west side of the property. We can do that by adjusting our plan, adjusting our driveway, adhering to your setback, the landscape buffer or a setback, I'm not sure which one it is, that's on the east side. So we would propose to do that versus a boundary adjustment. We would like to do that. We understand the maintenance of that open space with landscaping, grass. Our buildings are professionally maintained, so I can assure you that it will be taken care of. Regarding the front setback, we plan on moving the building forward to Bluegrass so that our building is literally sitting on that private setback line towards that view corridor for that, was it the Charter Center signage that's there? Okay. So we're moving it forward a considerable amount, which we're thinking would eliminate the need for an amenity, but we're not opposed to maybe some attractive landscaping, a bench, something like that. You know, I just hearing you speak about how this is more pedestrian and cyclist oriented, perhaps that might meet your needs. So that's our plan, you know, right now. With that, and you talked about.
Could I actually interrupt you?
Yes, please.
So I get the idea of moving the building forward towards Bluegrass. I don't understand why you want to move the building further east if you're not planning on splitting the parcel or adjusting the boundary lines.
At some point, Lormex Stern or Valvoline will market that side of the property. We don't know when. It will probably be after our construction, when it would be more appropriate that something's there, and we can, you know, better market it. But, you know, to make it wider would be more attractive to a, you know, potential tenant.
Right. Oh, okay, so it would be another business, but they would also be a tenant of the.
Yeah, they would share that driveway.
Okay.
You know, right now we have 2 accesses into there off of that drive. You know, depending on what they are and what their needs are. We could, you know, adjust accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
We can adjust accordingly. What other questions might I be able to answer for you?
Commissioners, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I just had one, so you're saying you'd move the building about 20 feet to the east,
Yes.
and that wouldn't affect any of the drive aisles there, so you just move it
We
further
would-
into that island that you have there?
Yeah, we'll move the drive aisle, everything over to the east. We're adjusting one of our drive aisles that is on the east side of the building to make it one way, and it'll be 18 feet. So we won't have two-way access around the building,
Okay,
but that will still accommodate our operations.
okay, well, that's what I was kind of getting at, because there's already 10 foot from the boundary. I'm thinking there's really not 20 feet to go, so that extra 20
Yeah.
feet's coming from somewhere else.
Yeah, it comes from just doing some adjustment, but moving overall
Yeah, okay,
over to the left.
nope, that's great, thank you.
To the east, yes. Now, we've also, let me add this, we have also allowed for expansion, future expansion. We have a 2-bay store that we're proposing here. We like to allow for another bay, you know, down the road if needed. We could tweak that a little bit. If you feel that there's a need for more space, and we could capture some more width on that west side of the parcel, if you feel it's appropriate.
Does Valvoline do, and I apologize, I don't know this, does Valvoline do, is it just oil change? I know that there's some that will do, some brakes, do other things like that. Is there any?
No, we just do, oil changes,
Yeah.
preventative maintenance with fluids.
Okay,
We'll change wiper blades.
Yeah.
We'll change light bulbs in your
Right.
headlights, taillights.
sure.
Some things like that.
Okay,
But we really don't do repair.
Okay.
It's more preventative maintenance.
okay.
The parking that you see on the lot is for our employees, because our customers stay in their cars unless they're having their tires rotated, and then we have a waiting area for them. So they're in and out. We like to say 15 minutes. We take a lot of pride in that. So the only parking we need is for our employees. And in this store, we would need 8, maybe 9. You know, we'll probably employ a total of maybe 15 to 20, you know, part-time, full-time, you know, people from, you know, the area. But, you know, that's our parking need, and I know that's in the report, and it goes with the stacking and what we have in the building as well. You mentioned deliveries, a delivery area in the report. And typically, for our oils and fluids, we have what I'm going to call a fuel oil truck, residential fuel oil truck. Makes a delivery to our facility once a week, twice a week, depending on the need. Not only do they deliver, but then they take the used oil with them. It's 15, 20 minutes. And they would do this, as we have it right here now, they would do it on the west side of the building. Now, for what I'm going to call our dry goods, air filters, oil filters, wipers, things like that, a box truck will deliver, again, once a week, perhaps, depending on our needs. They'll be there for 10, 15 minutes. And they'll probably park in a stacking lane if there's nobody in that bay. So we don't have any semi-trucks, trailers that are going to be on the site. Largest customer vehicle that we accommodate in our lot is we use an F-350 for the auto turn. We also make sure that fire trucks, especially newer fire trucks that tend to be larger and taller, we can accommodate them on our site as well. So. And no overnight parking because of that, if that was a question someone was going to have. Yeah, no overnight parking.
So with regards to the loading space, just for your reference, my suggestion is simply show that space that you're talking about for the fuel oil truck on the plan. Just
Okay.
dot down, put dimensions on it, the match
Gotcha.
the truck, and then just put those details you just mentioned, just put it as notes in the
Okay,
for both types of buildings.
okay. Would you require like some striping or some sort of identification?
And
Okay,
just showing it on the plan.
okay.
It's simply to know where that's going on. So you can, if there's an emergency, can fire equipment get around it.
Yes.
So
Okay,
by showing on the plan, we can address that.
okay.
What sort of sign will you have on Bluegrass?
It'll be a low profile monument
Okay.
sign. Monument sign, and then we'll have signage on our building as well.
Mhm.
The tower element, as you might have there in your packet.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there should be a, you know, well, actually, that's the, are these is one the north or elevation and one is south, or is
yeah,
it both?
the front elevation is gonna be your north.
Okay. So that Valvoline sign that's above the entrance of the, I guess, the waiting area office
Mm-hmm.
would be visible from Bluegrass?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's actually should be pretty visible to people.
Mhm.
Okay.
I understand that'll be a separate permit submittal for us.
You will see, one of the final site plan requirements is to show the proposed location for the freestanding sign and the basic detail. So you'll see that,
Hmm.
that'll be part of the final site plan submittal. But essentially the concept in terms of location and design.
Mhm. What fraction of your sites are three bay and which are two bay? Is two bay unusual, or is it like half and half, or?
I'm gonna say probably 50-50 right about now. You know, part of the, reason for a two-bay and the expansion is to be able to accommodate the changing environment with the evolution of EVs. We're starting to incorporate into our prototype design a lot of the anticipation of some of the things we need. Obviously, we have a floor that was just recently re-engineered to accommodate a heavier vehicle. Maybe some different areas within our building might need a larger or smaller space to accommodate some of those, what I call the dry goods, the different sizes of filters and things like that. Batteries, batteries are heavier. So we're looking at things inside that. So we can do all that if it's a two bay or a three bay, but to have the availability to expand if needed, we'll do that. So we're starting to look at those kind of things within our buildings right now.
Yeah. If you were to put a third bay, wouldn't it have to go on the side with the bays? As opposed, you wouldn't put it on the side
No.
outside the office.
Where we would propose is towards the east side.
Yeah.
You'll see that larger island that we have there.
Yeah.
It would go there.
But if you move it 20 feet, aren't you using up most of that space?
No. We're not using up that island space right now.
I think early on in our conversations, one of the early designs had it flipped where the office was on the east side.
It did.
Is that a possibility as well to make it easier for you to expand in the future?
Well, we like that, what we call a right-hand tower, just because of where we're located on Bluegrass and, the visibility for our customers to see us and that tower to be prominent. So accommodating any expansion is typically on the side that's opposite that tower, as of right now. And also where our tanks are located, where all of our equipment is located, in the basement and on the upper level.
I'm just curious, this isn't exactly germane to the conversation, but I always am curious about the vehicle electrification and those sorts of things. So there is a sufficient, for like an oil change place, there is a sufficient amount of consumables within an EV that you feel like there's expansion there for you as well in terms of.
Even though they don't need oil,
Yeah.
well, maybe some of them do, hybrids, whatever.
Yeah.
They're going to need fluids.
Right.
And maybe some different fluids, and maybe some lube, grease, things like that.
Right.
They can still get their wipers, their light bulbs for their headlights, taillights, things like that, and batteries. As that is going to evolve.
Okay.
So
Okay.
again,
Interesting. Cool.
we're all learning
Yeah. Right.
about this, but
Right.
but we're very much aware, and we're
Yeah.
trying to accommodate as much as we can
Yeah.
right
Okay.
now with what we know.
Great.
Other questions? I guess I'm going to ask Rodney maybe for some advice. Given that we've been told that there's going to be some movement to the building, it seems like none of the draft motions really capture that. So I guess I'm wondering what you would recommend in terms of how one would kind of structure a motion to, with the understanding that we're anticipating that the final is going to have those changes in it.
Well, I will say this, that if you would like to confirm that that's your preference, and I would use the motion to approve with conditions, and you have the one condition there that simply says the building needs to be moved forward as they've described.
Hmm.
If you're comfortable with her statement that they're going to do that, then you could simply approve the plan as presented. But you're approving the plan as you see it on your table. Essentially, they would then have the choice whether to follow the direction that they said they're going to do, or do something else.
Hmm.
So it's entirely whether you want to ensure that it happens, or allow them to make the choice for
Yeah.
it to happen.
Okay, all right.
So I'm just curious, is that if the plan meets all of our zoning ordinances, we can still put a condition on that? I mean, is that legal? I think that's where Commissioner Gross was going, is that something that we can actually require them to do, even though they already meet all the ordinances?
Yeah, in my comments, I referenced the master plan and the Bluegrass Center area plan. And I did that for a reason, because both the state law and our ordinance indicate that the site plan is required to comply with the zoning ordinance, certainly, but also it says in the state act that it must comply with the township's planning documents. And that statement is intended to reference the master plan and any other area plans or neighborhood plans, whatever it might apply to that site. So this is where your authority comes in to request that the building be put forward as a condition, is basically to maximize the consistency of the site with the master plan's policies for this area.
Guys, sorry to stop in, just to confirm, we've basically accommodated all of the concerns that Rodney had. Aside from altering the size of the parcel, which we can't do with our underlying seller, everything else we've accommodated, so just wanna make sure everyone's on the same page there.
And
So-
then we plan to move forward with what I just discussed, with moving
Okay.
it forward and then moving it to the east.
So you'd be okay with an approval of that with that condition?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
All right.
yes,
Nope.
we would.
That's helpful, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have his name for the minutes?
No, I did not. Did you?
Andrew Bell.
Andrew Bell.
All right. Other questions for the applicant, or concerns or comments? If not, we can have a motion if somebody's so moved.
Do we want to have any discussion, or are we moving straight to a motion? Or?
Well, we're still in the discussion stage, so if there's further discussion or comments.
I mean, I would only say an observation. I kind of, as I listen, and I do appreciate all the accommodations they've offered. I think that's great. I understand the desire to move a boundary, but man, that's tough to. I mean, we can encourage somebody to do it, but and as Rodney said, we can't require somebody to do it. But I do appreciate that they're thinking of that, so that's a good sign. They're thinking about what that extra space might look like and how they might be able to use it. And I do also understand the logic with the master planning for that area, and think that 95% of businesses really should be right up there. I don't know although I don't want to speak out of turn, I don't know that a lot of pedestrians are going to just stop in as they're walking past. So in terms of the compelling need for an oil change place to be right up on the road is, at least in terms of passersby, window shopping, that sort of thing, is less compelling. But I appreciate that they're accommodating that as well. So I think that they're doing everything they can to help us meet our master plan as well, and I don't have any real additional concerns. What I want to do is point out, because I hear that concern in terms of, can we ask somebody to move their building forward or that sort of thing, and I appreciate that they're accommodating our desires, because if it were some other retail business, I would feel pretty strongly that, yeah, you should be in accordance with our master planning. the fact that they're willing to move it when they're not required to, and we don't have to force a stipulation like that, I appreciate that as well. So I guess that's my long way of saying I'm pretty cool with a motion if somebody wants to make a motion.
And because of that weird setback or easement or whatever you want to call it, the building's really not going to be right on the road. The building's still going to be set back,
Right.
somewhat.
Right.
So anyway, so we can have a motion, or we can have more discussion. It's your pleasure.
I move to approve PRESPR 23-03 preliminary site plan dated December 15th, 2023 for a 3,334 square foot Valvoline instant oil change facility with 2 bays on the south side of East Bluegrass Road, west of Encore Boulevard, in the southwest quarter of Section 26 and in the B5 Highway Business Zoning District, finding that the site plan can comply with the applicable zoning ordinance requirements for preliminary site plan approval, including sections 14.2.p, required site plan information, and 14.2.s, standards for site plan approval, subject to the following conditions. To make the most efficient use of the lot possible, it's the determination of the Planning Commission to require that the proposed Valvoline building location be adjusted forward to directly abut the private building setback easement line depicted on the Alta survey.
Support.
Okay, so the motion was made by Lapp, and there was a second by Buckley. Further discussion?
I mean, do we need to be more specific about forward? I mean, forward toward Bluegrass, or is that,
What says it
Well,
forward
to the
setback
private
easement?
building setback.
To directly abut, it has, the building needs to touch that line to be directly abut the line, so that is pushing forward towards Bluegrass. You certainly could add that if you wish, but it's part of the motion. The building has to come up and touch that line.
okay, so there's no way for them to, I mean, could they, their interpretation being forward, could they move it toward Walmart?
That it would directly abut that line.
Correct.
Yeah, so the motion says that it will directly abut the private building
Okay.
setback.
Okay, just posing the question.
I don't mind if you feel it's beneficial to add towards Bluegrass Road, that's fine.
Do you want a friendly amendment?
No, not at all, it was fine, I just more question, just asking, that's all.
Any other discussion of the motion? So motion is to approve with the condition. Roll call vote, please.
Shingles,
Yes.
Squadrito,
Yes.
Lapp,
Yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Waring.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to state just one more time that I do appreciate your willingness to accommodate our efforts, and your mention, although obviously you're not required, but your mention of perhaps a bench out front would certainly be welcome for the walkers that
Okay.
do go by. So thank you very much.
Maybe we'll put your name on it.
Let's not go that far.
Right.
Right. Wasn't Ricky Bobby? Wasn't he Valvoline?
Next meeting, Ryan's gonna have a Valvoline sweatshirt.
That's what I'm saying, no, he's gonna have it on his back.
No, there you go, I didn't hear that,
I'd have a tattoo on his arm.
Thanks all.
Thank
you.
you.
Take care.
Me too.
All right, so we're ready to move on to our next new business item. This is PSUP 23-01, special use permit application. The applicant is Brent Curtis for a short-term rental at 5339 East Broadway Road. And so we'll turn it over to Peter for an introduction.
Unfortunately, Brent, the applicant, wasn't able to make it today, so I'll try to serve both sides and introduce the item to you. As it's put in our report, this is the first time that we're having an application for a short-term rental, commonly known as an Airbnb. Came to our attention that this activity was going on. This type of use had not previously been in the zoning ordinance. It's relatively new. And over discussions, course of time with the applicant, they decided that they did want to pursue their use and get approved for it. Part of that approval is a special use permit. We require a special or a minor site plan for this project. The house already exists. There's nothing really that needs to be built. The driveway's there, the parking spaces. They provided a site plan, their sketch for you, showing you the house as is and the location of where the rental is. Currently, the applicant's parent lives at the residence, and it is just the one area that is going to be rented out, while the other parent lives there full-time. As a special use, if it's approved, it stays with the property, and so even if the property were to switch hands, the new owner could take advantage of this use as long as they comply with all the requirements. They submitted an application, and what we as a staff decided is that we wanted to first just introduce this application to you. We didn't want to jump ahead and do a formal hearing for this, where we invite the public and maybe the applicant's caught off guard. We want to make sure that they have a successful public hearing and a good application and ready to go by the time we get to the public hearing part. So I did review the application and the materials given to me, and in my report I noted where it conformed and where it could still need some work and attention. Some of those things won't be able to be done until after approval, such as final inspections, getting the zoning permit approval, which won't be able to happen until they've gone through the special use permit and the minor site plan and whatnot. But the applicant has been sent a copy of this report. They're aware of all the requirements. I can attest that through this process they have been very willing to work with the township and been forthright with everything. So if you have any questions, I can answer. We can kind of go over it, and any kind of feedback I can get the applicant. My goal for tonight is, if you're satisfied, that we can schedule a public hearing next month and get rolling with this application.
If I just ask a clarification on the period of time, I don't understand that wording. The short-term rental may be for any period from 1 to 30 nights. A maximum of one short-term rental event shall occur in any 4-night period. What does that mean?
Just thinking the same thing.
To me, it doesn't make, it's like you could do a 30-day rental, but no, you can only have a 4-night rental? I don't understand what that's actually saying for the period of time. I assume it's specifying how long people can rent that.
This is, this language, it's in the ordinance, it's essentially consistent with the current practices related to how short-term rentals are handled. What it's essentially, number one, the idea here is that this is much more like a hotel than an apartment. What we'll call long-term rental, which is your apartment, or living essentially, is generally more than 30 days, or at least it's on a monthly basis. So, rather than 30 days or less. The other provision there is really to provide some space in the rental, because these are intended to be in neighborhoods like this one is. And so the idea is we don't have people coming in every day over and over and over again, one after another. People moving out, people moving in, which is more commercial in character and more disruptive to the neighborhood. So it requires some spacing in terms of how often they're rented, and that's the sort of once every so many days part.
Okay,
So
so no
some-
more than 30 days, and then at 4-day increments, basically. within
Some
that.
spacing in between.
Yeah, so there have to be 4 days between each rental. So if somebody comes in for 2 nights, it has to be empty for 4 before the next people can move in.
That's correct. yes.
Okay, no, that makes sense. I didn't read it that way.
Yeah, that makes more
Thanks.
sense.
Does that end up, it sounds like it kind of, I mean, it would be consistent with weekend rentals.
That's the common time for them, yes.
Yeah, so that you probably wouldn't have people during the week, but you'd have them on the weekends. Okay. I'm just looking at the paperwork here. The, Robin Curtis is his mother? Is that what you said?
No, Brent, I'm not sure. Brent is the applicant and his mother lives at the property.
Okay. All right, so she may or may not, that Robin may be his wife or might be his mother. Okay. But so, does she live there full-time?
Yes.
Okay, so it's her permanent residence. Okay. I think that's gonna make a difference to me anyway, because if you got somebody right in the house, presumably they're not gonna want a lot of fuss and hassle and noise and, whatever, so I would think that would tend to allay people's concerns, if they have concerns.
Just a comment, thinking about the Airbnb and the stages. I mean, when we were at a training at the Comfort Inn, I know around some of the lake properties, they were starting to have some concerns about it because somebody will rent for the weekend for a bachelor party. And there's parking and noise issues. I don't know if that would qualify for that, but, as we move forward with those types of events, how do we manage, the parking, because some of these lake lots, they got got 4 parking spaces, they have 12 people show up to the party for the weekend. There's just a
Well,
lot
there
of.
should be an occupancy limit based on the size, right?
That's kind of what I think that's
Yeah.
just more of a comment as we move
Yeah.
forward on some of this stuff than this particular incident or this particular
Yeah.
case.
I think it's fair. I mean, I think it's a fair question to have a conversation about what is Mount Pleasant's, what is Union's view towards. I mean, my father has a place up around the Central Lake, Elk Rapids area, and I know that a community like Elk Rapids, they're on the lake, they've taken extreme stances against the Airbnbs because it's up there. It's places are bought and sold based on they want to use it for Airbnb all year round. They want to,
Yeah.
and so they've really restricted what can now be used for Airbnb because you have a lot of vacancies. Nobody's doing it during the winter, so the town goes dead during the winter. And of course, there's less economic activity and that sort of thing if you've got a non-residential owner of the property and stuff. But I don't know enough about like what the happy medium is. I don't think Mount Pleasant's going to turn into a lake town anytime soon. So I don't know that we have necessarily that type of demand for Airbnb, but what is our vision for how we manage those things?
Well, right now, you certainly take a look at the section of the ordinance we referenced.
Yeah.
We do have some standards. They're
Yeah.
basic standards, but there are some standards that apply. And of course, because it's a special use permit, the general standards for special use permit will apply. Part of the reason it's a special use is because it is new. There may come a time, this is something that you consider as you go along, that if you set standards the way you would like to see them, that the activity wouldn't even need to come before you, because you follow these rules and it's sort of like a home occupation. You follow the rules and you can go ahead and do it, with an administrative approval. But for right now, because it's new and because of the potential to be challenges in the neighborhood, it's a special use so that the neighbors get notified when somebody would like to do it.
How does our ordinance compare to the city proper? I mean, what's their take on it?
Well, they do have regulations. I
Yeah.
don't recall right offhand
Yeah.
what the city's regulations are. We both have rental inspection requirements. So I noted the report of an inspector went out to this property and found everything in good order. And so both sides, that process is going on. But I don't recall the details of the city's ordinance, zoning ordinance provisions.
Yeah.
They do require special use permit.
I think you said, maybe in the paperwork, that they actually were already renting it.
Yes, they currently use it as an Airbnb, and that's how we found out about it, and let them know that if they plan to continue, that they'll have to go through the process. So they decided to they want to keep using it as Airbnb, so they'll go through the process.
Okay.
So clearly
you-
they're reasonably successful at it.
Yeah, yeah. Did you find out because there was a problem, or just because somebody ratted them, or somebody stumbled on it accidentally?
Well, let's just say we became aware of it, and leave it at that.
But not because there were problems,
there were
quote
no
unquote.
complaints.
Okay. There were no bachelor parties there.
No.
Okay.
And there were two that we became aware of. Two separate, you wanted to talk about,
Yeah,
talk about the other one?
yeah, so there were two, and yeah, I do want to emphasize that I've had no complaints with this property from neighbors, and that's
Mm.
not how so they've been doing it, and they've obviously been, doing it, I guess, almost in the right way, just not with the approval. But, so we did have another property that we found, and it was the same scenario. Met with them, discussed options, gave them some time to think. At one point, it looked like they were leaning towards wanting to, but ultimately they decided they didn't want to do all the work involved for an Airbnb. With this property, it sounded like the current owner may be giving the property later on to their children and letting them decide whatever they want to do with it, but for them, they weren't interested. So they wrote us a letter, we had it notarized, signed, stating, I think sometime next month, maybe February 18th or something, is basically the last time that it's going to be used as an Airbnb. And past that day, it's going to cease. With that, basically both applicants, I let them know that they weren't going to be approved until possibly February either way. So we kind of set the deadline of either you're going to be on our agenda in February or this activity is going to cease. So we had one person that wanted to apply and the other person decided they'll just cease activity.
Other questions from folks?
I mean, I'm generally not against Airbnb. I find it a little bit, again, and I'm not horribly experienced in it, but I find it a little bit limiting. I mean, like, again, if in a destination place in Michigan, you wouldn't find a 4-day inner, I guess, I don't know, a 4-day gap in bookings. It's leave on Saturday, the next people are there on Sunday, and it's as long as you can rent it. But I guess at this point, I mean, I think it's worth us keeping an eye on these things. At this point, if the applicant is comfortable with that, I'm not necessarily against any what we see here and what the ordinance currently says, that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, I thought it looked like it was in good shape, and your report was very clear in terms of explaining things, so I guess I think it's ready to go to a public hearing.
Do we need a motion for that?
You certainly can, if you're comfortable with that, you simply have a motion to set the public hearing date for the February meeting. In fact, in the report, toward the end there, it's not bolded or anything, but the recommendation where it says, I would ask that the planning commission, has the word two in there, but if the planning commission set a public hearing, you could simply say motion to set a public hearing and put the rest in there, and that would be a very nice motion for the minutes.
I move to set a public hearing for February 20th, 2024, or the Planning Commission should set a public hearing for February 20, 2024 for the special use application PCUP 23-01 for short-term rental housing located at 5339 East Broadway Road.
Support.
Was that you?
Yes.
Okay. So the motion was by Lapp, second by Gross, to set the public hearing for this special use permit application for our next meeting, which is on February 20th, as stated. Any further discussion? Okay, if not, we'll have a roll call.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Lamp,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
Waring,
Yes.
Squadrito.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. All right, so those are our new business items. The next item is other business. It's the continuation of our process for updating the master plan and also the Parks and Recreation Plan. As was pointed out, the survey data is starting to come in, and you in fact have at your seats a preliminary report. So I'll let Rodney introduce this.
Thank you. I met with Dr. Mary Sender just this morning to talk a little bit more about this. The reason for the highlighting is part of the result of our discussion. These are preliminary results, and this is only for the quantitative data. But we want to put this in your hand for an opportunity to take a look at it. Many of the questions that generated quantitative data also had qualitative elements to it, short answer elements where people would add comments. And so as we talked today, when the final report comes out, it's going to include some of those comments, and certainly a summary of that information that will give some context to some of these items as well. But the key is this is preliminary. This is not intended to be Dr. Sender's final report. So she has asked that it not be shared and not be cited. Hang on to the data if you'd like. If you want to give it back to me, you can, but they simply ask that you can keep it for yourself and not broadcast it out at this point. They're working on the final report. When we met this morning, she was talking about potentially a February timeframe to get that report to the township. Whether that's in time for our February meeting or not, I don't know, but it certainly sounds like it will be in time well in advance of our March meeting, so you have a chance to really look at the whole report in advance of that meeting. Just some logistics of this packet. The first section are the demographics, the data associated with the print survey. And this is the long form survey that was mailed out. It was sent out to all the addresses we have in our database. I don't recall quite the number, but we received back a total of 638 of the surveys, 33% response rate on that, which is a respectable number. Obviously, we always want more, but 33% is a good response for a survey. This survey did not go to the rental units because this was going to addresses we had on file. The only overlap in that would be single-family homes that are rented probably got this printed survey as well. But the second part of this, so if starting on page 15 of the packet, you'll see the summary.
Quick question. Did you say this survey went to all residents though in the township, or as a population of residents? Or?
Essentially, in two parts, it went to everybody.
Okay.
The long form printed survey, mailed survey, went to everybody that we have an address for. So that's everybody that there's a parcel. So basically, it's single family, two family homes, every parcel, residential parcel in the township. A separate survey, which was a postcard with a QR code and a link to a website, a digital version of the same questions, exactly the same survey, but it was basically a postcard with a link to access an online version. That postcard was sent out to every apartment. It was what we used for that part is we use the post office's every door delivery system. It's not bulk mail, but it's like bulk mail. Make sure it goes to every single mailbox within the geographic area. And so we covered every geographic area that has apartment communities in it, and every geographic area that had mobile home parks in it. And so all those addresses received actually more than one postcard to invite them to be a part of it. They surveyed that way. And so the data you see here is divided in two parts. The first 14 pages is a summary of the data from the mailed survey. At page 15, the end, is a summary of the data responses from the postcards version, the online version.
And again, I apologize, I was reading. Did you say, are we still accepting responses to the survey, or is that closed?
That is now closed.
Okay.
I think when we last talked, I told you it was just over 600. They waited another couple of weeks, got it up to 638 responses. They also received some additional digital responses, but I think there's about 80 there too, so it's now 89.
Okay.
That's the final. The reason the data is in two parts, the reason they didn't combine the digital version, postcard version, and the mailed survey is because the mailed survey is a scientific survey. This is done to very rigorous standards for surveying. How they interacted with the respondents was all done to a rigorous standard. The postcard version we have less control over. We don't know who responded, for example. Although the postcard ends up in an address, we don't know who's responding to that. There's more potential for folks that are not township residents to be in that block than there is for the 638 responses that we received. So although both answer the same questions, the data sets are separate, and the potential error in the survey is different between the two. The postcard survey has a higher potential error rate because it's less scientifically rigorous, simply because we had to send them out in a different manner, and the responses came back in a different manner. So when Dr. Sunder wanted to be here tonight, she apologizes, she had a conflict. She does intend to come when the final survey is done to sit down and be here to answer questions and to discuss it. So you're getting the shorthand version from me, but she is intending to be here for the final version. So what she asked you to do is to avoid directly comparing the two sets of data. The tables, as you look at this, you start first table on page 3. There's a corresponding table that matches it on page 16. It's the answers to the same questions, and you certainly can look at it and understand, see what the numbers are and kind of flip back and forth. But just understand that to some extent we're comparing an apples data set with an oranges data set, because they're two different standards under which the survey respondents come in. So in general, you can look at them, but as you get very detailed, the error rate is such that it may not be easily comparable. One of the interesting things, though, if you look on page 2 and then page 15, which is the summary of both of them, there is a very significant difference in the character of the respondents. The median age of the respondents to the print survey is 64 years old, and the median number of years living in the township is 21 years. Then for the online version, that postcard survey, the median age there is 36 years, almost half, not quite half the age of the other. And then the median number of years is 4, which is understandable. For the nature of apartment living, mobile home living, you would expect that there's likely going to be a shorter tenure, younger families, younger people responding. There's also a similar difference in median income between the two for those that responded to that question. So it's an interesting difference in the data sets that come up, and you'll see that as you look through some of the answers to some of the questions, especially related to recreation amenities. You'll see some differences that may reflect that age and tenure in the community. the other item, I guess, take a look at, maybe take a look at page 2. This first table here, which is rating, essentially grade, providing grades for certain things like customer service from Township Hall staff, fire services, and water sewer department services. One of the other things she asked me to recommend to you as you look at these numbers is to look at the general trends rather than the details. So, for example, on this table 1, curbside recycling has an excellent score of 28.5%. Police services down below 26.3%. With an error rate of 4%, those numbers are identical essentially. I mean, they're well within the margin of error. So you just want, small differences probably should be just, not discouraged is not the right word, but discounted. Large differences and those trends should be looked at. So for example, customer, very pleased with this actually, so that's why I'm mentioning it. Customer service from Township Hall staff, either excellent or good. The vast majority of the respondents found that the customer service here at the hall to either be excellent or good. And so kind of grouping those two together versus adequate, fair, or poor, it'd be in a very small percentage. You see there a character generally of the overall respondent's point of view. So with those thoughts in mind, I'm happy to answer any questions about what you see. I know that you just got to look at the table here. And you certainly, as I said, you're welcome to take these with you and just ask that you not share them. But it's certainly something that we can look at more next month, and we'll look forward to the final report with even more detail as well then.
Is her final report going to include her analysis of the data?
That is correct. That's what they're working on right now. It will include the analysis of the data. It will not include every single comment. But some of the comments were very specific. In fact, when we met today, she gave me an example of one of the specific comments, and I said, I know who that is. and I described the issue, I described the place and the person and why she was making that comment, because I knew who it was. Absolutely, just from the characteristic of that comment. And there are a number of those. There was another one that she noted was really a complaint about one of this person's neighbors, and they provided the address and the name. Well, she's not going to include those kinds of things in the report, but for these short answers, she's going to include a representative sample as well as a summary of the character of an analysis of those comments.
Mm-hmm.
She said that if she included all of them, the report would be 300 pages long.
Yeah.
So, but the data will be available if we want. But her analysis will be definitely a big part of this final report.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. When is that expected by our February meeting or later?
Well, this morning we were talking in March. The contract with Dr. Center and her team was set up with the idea of a report coming to the township by March, and the reason for that was really related to the board's activities for our annual joint meeting and their ends discussion, which start in the spring. But also, of course, to help us with our activities here with the master plan and the Parks and Rec plan. When we talked this morning, she was talking about a February timeframe. As I don't know yet if it would be in time for a February meeting. If it is, we absolutely will have it to you. But it sounds like certainly it will be in time for our March meeting.
Okay. Any questions on this? Anything else you want to say about the other updates section? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, but
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. Our township engineer, Gordy Frazier, has initiated her part of that project, and we'll be seeing activity on that in this first quarter of the year. We should be seeing some results actually, probably early part of spring, March or April. That's the intent of that project, is to have direction back for her for that. I guess one thing that's not in this memo is that there was another grant opportunity that popped up just in the last couple of weeks, and it's from the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, MISHDA, for grants to fund housing needs assessments. We talked in the past. It's one of the elements that was in the 2018 master plan about the potential for doing an analysis of housing in the township. Where are the gaps? What types of housing is needed? Where perhaps overbuilt if possible. Having that type of assessment can be valuable for the master plan in the area, for the residential portion of the master plan. This grant opportunity opened up to potentially have some state money to support that, and we actually did submit an application. I just actually completed that this afternoon to see where that goes. The state of Michigan has developed and adopted a statewide housing plan, and there are 15 regions that were created as part of that, and there are regional plans that are either completed or in the process that are basically being, and for our region, they're being coordinated by the East Michigan Council of Governments, which is one of the regional planning agencies. And so this, anyway, the regional plan for our area identifies these housing assessments as an important component of gathering data and that can be used to support new development, new housing, especially for workforce type housing, what they call the missing middle housing, which is definitely a gap that we're feeling in terms of affordability. And so this grant opportunity was very good timing. So we'll see where that goes, but if that does come through, that is another piece of the puzzle that we can add to this project in terms of data and guidance for the master plan.
Okay. Any other questions for Rodney on the master planning process? So we're basically waiting for information to flow to us to review and digest and move forward with. Okay, sounds like they're content. All right, so we'll move on and wrap up the meeting here. We've reached the point where we have extended public comments. This is the point in the meeting where anyone is invited to address the Planning Commission on any item, whether it was on tonight's agenda or not. And so if you want to do so, again, come to the podium or make yourself known online and give us your name and address for minutes and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Extended public comment is open at 8:28.
I have no one online.
And we have no one but the electrons are in our online chat room. So, and our audience is no longer here, so we'll assume there's no public comment. So we'll go ahead and close that back up until February. So we've reached final board comment, and so I will avail myself of the opportunity to remind people that March is Michigan Association of Planning's workshop season. So I got this flyer in the mail, and there are a bunch of different workshops coming up in March. A few of them, one or two of them are online. The rest of them are not. There's nothing in Mount Pleasant this year. There's Grayling and Kalamazoo and Frankenmuth and what else? So in any case, I don't know. You all get this too, right? Maybe send a copy to everybody so they can see. And so the way we work it is, if you're interested in going to a training or a workshop, let Peter know. We'll get you registered, and then it's up to you to transport yourself there and whatnot. But I believe in our bylaws, each member of the planning commission is supposed to participate in some sort of training once during their term. And so if you didn't do one last year, maybe this year's the right time to do one. But if any of them, fit your schedule and interest, then let Peter know. I think that's all I have. Any other comments from board members?
I guess one question I have talking about that flyer, is everybody receiving mailings from the Michigan Association? Like each of you should be on their mailing list. For one thing.
I don't believe I received that flyer.
I don't think I did either.
Yeah, maybe
I
it's,
don't think I've gotten it either.
We get a lot of email as well, so, yeah.
A little too much email, actually.
I was kind. I said a lot. I said too much.
I know it's a losing battle, but I've been trying to clean up my email, and that's one of them on my list.
All right, so if there's no other comments from board members, we will consider that we've completed our agenda for tonight, and we'll stand in adjournment until our February meeting on the 20th.